All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another Savage Bruski podcast. Patty is taking the night off. He's got some time with family, so we're going to let him do that. But in his place, we've got Jeremy, and welcoming on the channel for the first time, Jonathan, aka War Budgies.
Thank you, Bruski. It's good to actually talk to you in person, sort of.
Yeah, we've kind of beat around the bush and had every other conversation, but it's great to have you on. And as always, Jeremy, War God Wargaming.
Glad to be back.
Yeet. So before we kick off on the topic of this night's episode, I just figured we'd give Budgie the chance, just kind of intro yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What are you good at? What are you known for? What's your channel about? Jeremy and I obviously know, but for everyone tuning in, just give us a little intro, little teaser for who you are, what you do.
I'm still getting used to people calling me Budgies. It's really it's kind of unnerving, kind of interesting. So yeah, I run a channel called War Budgies. We started up a few years ago. It started off as a bunch of just weird hobby projects. Like we did some Chaos Infinity portals. We stuffed a bunch of motors and LEDs into a Warlord Titan. That was a good time. And then a couple of years ago, branched out into narrative battle reports for Warcaster, Neo Mechanica, Fallout Wasteland Warfare, and hopefully some more games in the future. Because man, I got the battle report bug pretty bad.
I hear you on that one.
Yeah,
You should get 5 parsecs from home and 5 leagues from the Borderlands a shot.
I should definitely do that. Dude, I'm going to have like a massive question. I'm building a shed. So I'm about to move, and I'm going to build me a shed that is nothing but a studio and game space.
It better be a really warm shed.
Depends on which part of the state you're in, though.
Yeah, it gets a bit chilly up there.
Yeah. I mean, being from Buffalo, yeah, obviously I don't have the dark part down, but I know about the cold and I know about the snow. So
I actually think Buffalo gets colder than most of Alaska.
-10, -15 wind chill. I don't know. I think Alaska still has us beat.
That's not very many degrees, man. You should get some more of those.
Yeah. True enough. Well, as always, again, good to have you. So tonight we want to talk about campaigns, and we're not just limiting that to TTRPGs. We're talking, your battle games, your strategy games, your skirmish games. First question that always comes up as far as I'm concerned is outside of the TTRPG setting, because that's kind of, it is strictly narrative. What are your guys' favorite types of campaigns? Do you like ladder? Do you like map? Do you like, tourney style elimination sort of campaigns? Jer, what's your take, man?
Oh, my favorite type of campaign would be a narrative-driven map campaign. Yeah. I actually believe I talked about it in my last well, I didn't paint. I rebuilt some Tau Fire Warriors for my channel. We were talking about campaigns in there.
Yeah, I saw those on Insta. Okay. Good take. Jonathan, how about you? What is your, if you have the preference, what is your preferred type of campaign?
I have a preference that borders on zealotry, my dude. It's map campaigns the whole way, man. I came into this hobby at the same time as the Eye of Terror campaign was happening, that giant map campaign that Games Workshop did online. And I got hooked on like Dawn of War and all sorts of battle reports, and this whole idea of the giant map and sort of clawing your way across it is just it's great.
I gotta agree with you there, and that was my first campaign as well. I think the reason Agrippina was such a stalemate was my friends literally just played I don't know how many dozens of games and reported those up, and all they could say is, "Well, it's on fire." So yeah.
Good job, Bruski. You broke it.
Damn it! You had one job.
So it sounds like we all started right around the same time then the Eye of Terror campaign.
It was a good era, man. It was a golden age.
That was an awesome time to be gaming. I don't care what you were playing. Things were awesome back then. But yeah, that's my take as well. I love map campaigns. Whether it was Eye of Terror, Battle for Vogan, I did map campaigns in BattleTech at the time. Like I think we were fighting one of the clan invasions or something like that with a couple of friends. Nice. Always good to have a map, and it does take a little bit extra work, but I mean, anytime that's involved, that's always a plus for me. So I got to agree with you on that one.
Yeah, it's cool because it puts the stakes like right in front of your face.
yeah, you can see like, oh, great, I'm about to get, kicked out of the game because I have one territory and everybody else has at least 10, like,
Yeah,
okay.
it's like, oh, I'm only 3 hexes away from this capital city or something. Like, it's nuts.
And I mean, even just likening it to Risk, you get some serious reversals. You get some, very, very nail biting, oh my God, cliffhanger type reversals that can occur there too. So
Yeah, I will
there.
say I have not yet tried to write one. I have to imagine writing one, and it's probably a pain.
Right, and map campaign?
Yeah.
I mean, you almost kind of did with your Warcaster campaign.
I, I was gonna say Jericho Reach season 2, you had the sort of interactive map. You were fighting your way to the lawgiver or whatever.
Oh, so I'll give you guys a little spoiler thing. That was pretty much a ladder campaign that was presented in a map format.
But that's a lot of times that's all a map campaign is.
Yeah, I'm talking about like you go back to Dawn of War and you can go in all sorts of different directions. You got to worry about supply lines, you got to worry about capital cities, regional bonuses, all that kind of stuff. Like I love the complexity, but God, do I hate to write it.
Yep. I know what you mean. It was more linear, but yeah, I get what you mean there.
So, do you actually have the Warhammer 40K Planetary Empires book that is like designed to run map campaigns with?
I do. I've got the really old school black and white. Looks like it was printed out of Kinko's
Yeah,
Planetary
right.
Empires book.
Yeah, that's the same one I got.
I love it. I
mean,
wouldn't use it, but I love it.
I mean, it gives you a good basis to help build out campaigns, especially map ones.
It does, and I do feel like it's aged pretty well compared to some of the GW stuff.
And it pulled all of its bases from the Mighty Empires rules, which were
That's
the
right. The fantasy one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of leapfrogging around. Obviously, 40K is now doing, it's taking after Age of Sigmar more. But I mean, back then, 40K somewhat took after fantasy and those kind of things afterwards as well, from what I remember. So
it's a vicious cycle.
It is. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with basically Catan style tile campaigns. That I think that's what made that thing. Catan guys were like, oh crap, they're catching on to us, They actually modeled texture into theirs. How dare they?
Jerks. I don't know if you guys have seen Mini Wargaming is fixing to do this like freaking 600 hex tile map 40K campaign.
I have been. Oh, it's Age of Sigmar.
Oh, it is Age. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's the Lost City, where they have like 5 of the different realms all touching in the middle, or 4 of the realms touching in the middle, and the city touches all the 4 realms.
Yeah, shows you how much I was paying attention. I saw 600 hex tiles, and that's where my attention stopped.
It's those textiles are from Graving Guild, I believe is the name of the company, and they're called Hex on Hills. Cool. I did the Kickstarter for it, so I actually have access to like 85% of those tiles. There's been a few put out since the Kickstarter that I haven't purchased, maybe like $80 worth.
Yeah,
that's actually really handy. We should probably pick some of those up.
Yeah, they're pretty nice. I was actually talking to Pat and my brother Ray and my other friend John up here. Funny story, his name is also John Smith.
Yeah, there's a lot of us.
It's a good name.
About printing out maybe 10 tiles a person and building our own little map to do like a campaign either in the new edition of 40K or 1-page rules, depending on where we want to go. Pat's a huge hate on GW, so you have to always put something different in there.
That's a great use for 3D printing though, because finding the actual Planetary Empire tiles nowadays, holy hell, dude.
So I have a crap ton of those. I probably have about 100 of them, and the problem is they have those weird borders that don't, and the hex and hills, they just blend together. So yeah, that's much nicer in my opinion. And so I don't mind printing out some tiles, and I'll probably sell those ones on eBay or give them to a friend that wants them.
I was gonna say, hawk those on the black market and you'll make a penny.
Oh, hawk those to me, I'll give you a penny.
Well, when you stop up in June, you can pick them up.
Touche.
I think I even have 3, maybe just 3 of the hive cities, which are like the hardest tile to find.
Yeah, those are nuts.
Alrighty. Well, in terms of writing, Budgies, I know you've done one. Jeremy, have you written, I mean, obviously other than like D&D, have you written a lot of other campaigns for other systems, or what's kind of your experience?
I've actually written quite a few campaigns. So me and my brother, when we first started off way back 2000, when he started really getting into the game, we started off with the what is the name of those rules? Chapter approved rules were a thing still.
Mm-hmm.
So we were constantly adding in new units to make the game like more unique for us, and we were playing a campaign in an area of space we called the Verge, where like basically anything can happen because this area of space had been cut off from the Imperium of Man by warp storms for 10,000 years.
Nice.
And so yeah, we bought a ton of models that weren't 40K models, but we used vehicle design rules to make 40K rules for them. So like I have an Arachnan army from Starship Troopers, and we would use those in there. Again, have a bunch of Arachnids fight against Space Marine and Imperial Guard army. And so that was kind of my start with writing out campaign play. And I actually at the time, like, there wasn't nothing like Facebook or anything like that really as big into the internet. So I made a blog, and you could probably still find it out there. It was called Perils of the Verge. And I recorded our games on that blog.
That is a boss title, dude.
Thank you. I think somebody else might have used it for something else though, because I was looking for it a while back and I kept finding something that was different. That wasn't what I was looking for, because I'm trying to transfer all the info from it over to my Obsidian portal page.
Mm.
Smart move.
But other than that, I mean, I've run so many. Before I got heavy into tournament play, I only liked really running narrative games with like that could be linked into campaigns.
Yeah,
Be that.
That's kind of where I am, and it's where I've been for the past 20 years, and I like it here.
It's a fine place.
It's a fun place. I built a hut. I get my mail here.
Nice.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I did go to Boca Brawl recently, and that really made me want to try out the tournament scene because, man, those people are intense.
See, that's what happened to me. I got conned into going to Feast of Blades back in 2014. So then from 2014 to 2018, I was just every major tournament in the Southwest I went to. And it got to the point where I was just burnt out on tournament play.
That's a thing, yeah.
I've only done one, and it was this weird little my local GW, one of the players that had been there for ages was going away, and he decided to throw, like, he asked if he could throw a tournament there, and it was both Age of Sigmar and 40K, just whatever. You would have like best general, best painted, best sport, whatever, all the categories. And he was like giving away a bunch of his collection just because, he wasn't taking it with him. And it was so weird. I brought Raven Guard for 40K. This is probably in, I think, end of 6th, beginning of 7th edition. I ended up like 3rd place out of nowhere. I got best sport, and he gave me his whole, what was that fantasy fleet game, Dreadfleet?
Yeah, Dreadfleet.
Yeah.
He gave me a set of that, and I was just like, I did not expect to place 3rd. I did not expect any of this. I came for the laughs, and it was just like, oh my God.
And you had some laughs.
There were laughs indeed. I just, I had a really fun game against a Tau player and learned really, really badly that Space Marine captains don't take well to railguns to the face. The Emperor does not protect.
We had the same problem in Warcaster. Railguns face, bad times.
I mean, yeah, but that's why you call it the Mark II problem solver.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, man. Okay, John, how about, I started watching your channel. I started watching your stuff mainly between your Men Off for War Machine and Warcaster, obviously, but I know you've done games for Fallout. Did you do campaigns for that, or was it more just kind of like, just here's a narrative game?
For those, it was less of a campaign. It was more of a season. And I use season to mean it was individual narrative battle reports that followed kind of an overarching story. And you can 100% blame a good friend of mine, Mini Wargaming Dave, for that, because he talked me into this at Valhalla in the fall one year. And then I tried out doing battle reports next year, and that's just what I've been doing ever since. But for Fallout, I think Fallout Season 1, I only did about 5 or 6 episodes. And it's just, you follow this little crew as they're going around trying to accomplish some goal. I think, God, it's been a while. I think in the first episode, they killed Codsworth. And so the whole rest of the season was just them trying to bring him back online. And that was it. But you can use that kind of narrative thread to string everything together. So when I did Season 2, up the scales a bit, introduced more factions, more stuff's going on. Got into Warcaster, started telling stories on that. And that was when I really wanted to be like, okay, let's mark off at the start of this, what story am I trying to tell over the course of 10 episodes? So it's less of a campaign in the sense there's not a lot of other people involved contributing, but it does follow a very strong story, which I personally think is a big part of what makes it a campaign appealing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Let's follow that thread for a minute here. Where have you gotten your best ideas, or what makes the best stories basically for the campaigns you guys get into? John, let's start with you on this one.
Caring about the characters. That's true. I mean, you can go watch many wargaming stuff. You can go watch some of my stuff and all that. You can go really watch what people get invested with when they play a campaign. And it's who are the heroes and how are they doing? We all want to see that one solo or that one general on our army like do the heroic thing and all that. And when you're doing a campaign, you can sort of weave stories around these one or two figures and just build your whole army essentially as their entourage. And that's what really captivates people when they're out there making custom models for the heroes, when they're making up names, and here's this cool thing he did that one time. He stabbed a Carnifex and then died, because that's what happens when you stab a Carnifex, but he's okay. It's cool.
Agreed. Totally agreed on that one. And yeah, like, even just watching Jericho Reach, you were always trying to figure out who the captured Eternus Continuum guy really was, or what his deal was, because it seemed like he was playing the field all the time.
Yeah.
And that obviously made sense in the end. So you did that, in my opinion, you did that part really, really well.
Thank you.
And you had all the angles. He was, tipping off the ISA, his fellow Continuum guys were trying to whack him at one point. It was just kind of all over. Yeah. Jer, how about you? What inspires or what drives your stories? What kind of gave you the or what really gets you going when you're writing a campaign?
Oh, I have to agree with John that the characters drive that story, but you have to have a good bad guy too. So right now I'm in that process of working up my 5 Par-6 campaign. I've done the character creation, filmed it all up, but started editing it, but then we had a power bump and I lost everything, so I had to start over. But I know where the story wants to go, but I need a big bad, and he's gonna be less a Jabba the Hutt and more a Kingpin type character. So you can't just have, you gotta to get people invested, you gotta have to have a true character that your characters can fear. If there's no fear from your characters, then what's the point of the story? There has to be some type of what's it called when you have I'm having a brain fart, but
it's got to feel dangerous.
Yeah,
like Jabba never felt dangerous. He just sat there.
Or yeah, like the Game of Thrones movies. You knew Jon Snow was never gonna die, right?
Oh, I got you.
Jon Snow was never gonna die in that show. We all realized that Jon Snow was like gonna be alive the whole time. There was no sense of this character might die at any time. But if you watch the original Alien movie and you actually watch it like you've never watched it before, you'll see that the first 3/4 of that movie centers around Kane as the main character. Ellen Ripley's a side character.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't become the main character until after Kane had the first face hugger on his face, then the chest burst and everything, because the opening scene is the cryopod opening up on Kane waking up first.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone's reaching for the keyboards right now. We know Jon Snow died. He got better. It doesn't count.
Yeah, and then Kane's the one that leads him into the alien ship. Kane's the one that goes down. So then they kill Kane. Like, whoa, geez, there's actually a sense of bad things can happen to main characters.
Yeah.
So you got to get that kind of feel, I think, in your campaigns. Bad things can happen to your main character, and I've ran into it with RPGs. I've ran into it with wargaming. Well, people don't want their main characters to die. They get upset. They want to quit. me and my daughter played our Frostgrave campaign, and she has a war dog as one of her characters, and she told me if her war dog dies, she quits.
That dog just got some serious plot armor, I think.
So she's gonna have to learn that some things just have to happen.
I was gonna say that's gonna go one of two ways, dude. Because one of the two of you is about to learn a lesson.
Yeah, Jeremy's either going to go to great lengths to keep that damn pup alive, or he's going to go to great lengths to give him a horrible, horrible death.
Well, I mean, it could die in game, and as long as it doesn't roll a 1 or 2 in the casualty phase, he'll be fine. He can play the next game.
It's in the hands of the dice now.
Oh, sure. Blame the dice.
Matter of fact, she's actually not feeling well today, so if she misses school tomorrow, I told her she would have to play a game with me because we have to record tomorrow.
Nice.
And
I'll admit, I'm just as guilty because writing the whole thing for Jericho Reach, the first 2 rules were Taria can't die, Avarice can't die. And that makes some story problems when the whole planet is at war.
Yeah, that's got to be tricky. That's kind of, you're now forced to jump through certain hoops. Like, how do I make them alive?
Yeah,
it's like that's been done badly. I'm just gonna call it out. Abaddon.
Yeah.
How many bat reps have we read in White Dwarf or seen or something like that? Abaddon loses his last wound, but he's okay. Like, it's just, it drives me insane.
He lives because he must.
Well, didn't Mini Wargaming once run a campaign where they had made a Sisters of Battle that had converted to chaos, and then like she was gonna be like the main character, but then they were doing the casualties and Dave rolled and she died, and so their whole story got messed up. They had to reset. I might be misremembering, but I swear that happened. That's what, and I think Leland was still working for them at the time, and he was fighting against Leland's sisters because Leland was the one that had the nicely painted Sisters of Battle army.
I kind of remember that, yeah.
It rings a bell, and I think most of us do that in some of our first campaign attempts where it's like, oh, we're going to put all these stakes on here. But it's like, when you put all the stakes in one pile, sometimes you lose.
The good guys got wiped out to a man. The bad guys have all the holy items. I think they got it, yeah. This is supposed to go for 10 episodes. We're done in 4. Shit.
Yeah, so campaign pro tip, you either need to invest in plot armor or you need to invest in redundant heroes.
And redundant heroes is the way I like to do it.
Redundant heroes, I think, is more fun because it's almost like that Starscream situation. Like, you feel like that guy's always behind you, like, you dead yet? Is it my turn?
And obviously,
go away.
Yep. Obviously, we've seen that go well and go badly. I mean, not referencing it out of game, but I mean, you guys, and I'm not saying these are the paragons of epic filmmaking or anything, but you guys saw the new Ray Finn Poe trilogy of Star Wars, yeah?
I have not.
Unfortunately, yes. I saw those 3 movies.
All right. Bear with me on this one. The first movie, Force Awakens, could you figure out clearly who the Mary Sue or who the main person was until the very end?
Oh, yeah. No, it was right off the bat.
All right. She
automatically kind of, well, I don't want to give John, you gonna watch these anytime soon, John, or do you not care? They're 10 years old almost now.
Yeah, it's spoilers have come and gone. I have no interest.
Okay,
all right,
cool.
She knows how to freaking basically fly the Millennium Falcon better than anybody ever flew the Millennium Falcon right off the bat, like nothing. also just happens to stumble across the one protocol droid that has the directions to get to Luke Skywalker.
All right. I was getting thrown, especially when you had Finn using the lightsaber. I was like, well, wait a minute, is he a Jedi? Is he actually going to step up and do something really big here? And then he gets outed for, the last half hour or whatever the hell. You're like, oh shit, he's dead.
I think that JJ probably had bigger plans for Finn, but then Ryan Johnson, whatever his name is, the guy who directed the second one, he probably wrecked all those plans with a lot of things I think that JJ had set up. And that's because they let Ryan just take over and do the movie how he wanted, and he didn't have to follow any of the setup stuff. And he had no real direct oversight by Kathleen Kennedy, from what I've heard. He just was able, given the ball and ran with it.
Which can be good or bad. So
which then the guy who was supposed to direct the third movie basically was like, I'm bowing out. I can't fix what you just did. Everything I was planning, you ruined.
And that leads us to our next campaign top tip, folks. Talk to people. Make
You're
sure
going to
you're on the
collaborate.
same page.
Collaborate.
You'll collaborate, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's flip that around then. What is the biggest problem, or what is the biggest challenge when you're writing a campaign? Jonathan, let's start with you on this one.
Oh, good Lord. So I'm cheating a little bit, because when I run a campaign through Jericho Reach, it's on my channel. It doesn't matter really how many people contribute or don't contribute. It still is going to happen, because that's how I mapped out the episodes. The campaign that I write for Privateer, the Black Tide campaign, I'm not going to count that either, because it's currently, as far as I know, it's the only narrative campaign out there for War Machine. But the biggest problem I've had running in stores is just keeping people's interest week after week after week after week. Because the longer the campaign, the better the story, but the harder it gets every week to get people to show up for it.
True. And I know what you mean on that one. Like, unless you have some kind of gimmick going, like, where you're crafting like really elaborate terrain, like the Booker Brawl had that awesome table with the
John built.
Yeah.
The wall, the Kador wall with the bears on it, painted on it.
That was a fun build.
There you go.
And then you were using the towers as siege towers.
Yeah. I gave the towers some basic movement rules, so they had essentially they'd reach the walls in 3 turns essentially.
Smart move.
It was fun.
I mean, yeah, that was terrain. I think, especially if you're the one organizing it, if you make something really interesting, if you give the game a wrinkle like that, I think that adds a lot to it. I mean, do you guys remember when the Necrons first got their rule set in, I think it was end of 3rd ed or beginning of 4th ed, and there was that Dawn of Evil campaign all the stores were running?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first Necron we ever saw were well before that in Rogue Trader. Are you talking about when they got their first plastic kits?
Yeah, like when they actually got like more than
mid 3rd edition.
Yeah. I don't know if it was exactly the same in every single store, but mine had a whole, like, my Games Workshop was in a mall, and they literally reserved like a convention hall or a room there, had a big like 10-foot table, built a ginormous like glass etched Necron pyramid. It was all light up and they just went the whole 9 yards. It was like, wow. As a teenager, I was freaking impressed to be there,
Yeah. And that's what I love about it. Like, you get the chance to do spectacle games, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this may not be the most balanced or fair thing in the world, but my God, does it look cool. And that makes it, and that's it. You get this whole memory about experiencing this, like the siege or this giant attack on this 10-foot table and all that stuff. And those memories are really what gets me energized. I remember going to back when Games Workshop opened the Memphis Battle Bunker. It was a big deal at the time because it was like the biggest US store back then. And they did the same thing. They had those long tables, super scenic terrain and all that. And walking in there was just mind blowing.
Yeah, that is always epic. It's always defined. You see those special tables, you walk in for that and you're just like, oh yeah, this is going to be good.
Unfortunately, I never got those experiences because I never even was in a GW store until I moved up here to Tacoma. I'd only ever been into like friendly local stores. Most of them don't spend a ton of extra time on terrain or make big crazy tables or anything like that. It was always a fight for me to even try to get a tournament, 5 tables worth of tournament terrain without using my own personal terrain.
I'm real tempted to go to Gameology or Game Empire in Pasadena and make a killing now. So, oh man. All right, Jared, how about you? What's the biggest challenge when you're writing or making a campaign? What's the biggest bugbear for you to overcome?
Locking players in that like are gonna play the full campaign. Like I have no problem writing up a story, figuring out the amount of time. Since I've been up here in Washington, my player group isn't very big. I got up here right before COVID or I guess we can't say that. So I got up here right before the pandemic and so I didn't really get to meet too many people that were in the gaming community. And then once I started meeting them after things settled down, they're spread out over seven different stores because there's so many different stores, and getting them all together to go to one store or even get them to come to the house and play house games is like pulling teeth because just the gas prices are crazy up here compared to a lot of other places I've been, where I think we're sitting at like $4.25 a gallon. People don't want to drive far, and it's bare minimum. I'm 30 minutes from anybody or any of the big game stores. So I've out of the people managed to get 2 people to come to my house for basically 6 games of Dead Zone for a campaign, and every other campaign I've set up since that has failed. they never get off the table. People just they'll say yeah I'm in, but then they're like, oh, I don't go to that store, or oh, I don't want a house game, or it's always something that. So getting people to commit is my hardest thing.
All right. I'm sensing a theme here. No, but yeah. No, that's accurate.
Yeah, people don't like me. That's the theme. We know. Everybody knows. Jeremy, that guy.
He'd certainly never be on a podcast with you.
That guy's an asshole. Nobody likes him. He's cocky. He thinks he knows everything.
Who'd be on a podcast with you? Wait a minute.
I think the most successful campaign I've seen in person was actually a Warcry campaign at my local GW store when I was stationed in Maryland. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that the games took like 20 minutes.
Yeah, Warcry is super fast.
It was so easy to get people to come by for games on that.
My first teaching game of Warcry, I was the first one in my local area down in El Paso to learn Warcry. And I was teaching it to the group of guys that normally play Age of Sigmar.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first guy that played the game with me, I explained him the rules. He picked, the mission was, you pick a model, I pick a board edge. I then tell you the board edge. You move your model at the board edge, you win. He was playing the Untamed Beast, which has that little Warhound dog thing.
No.
The saber-tooth cat thing. It has like a movement, a 7. So he just like double moved it off the board edge in one turn. I'm like, wow, that ended the game. You won. Well, let's do another one.
Great rag. Good game.
I had this brilliant question and it's evading me now. Must be getting old.
Story of my life.
I got a question for you guys.
Shoot, take over, please.
All right, so we all have talked about campaigns. Now what is your favorite campaign you've ever played in or ran from each genre? So a tabletop RPG campaign, a sci-fi campaign, and a fantasy campaign. Ooh. Do you remember the name and what drew you into that campaign? Not when you wrote, though.
Not when we wrote?
Not when you wrote.
Oh, man. I'll go ahead and jump in. The tabletop RPG, there was a group I was playing with in Texas, and we were playing Pathfinder 1st Edition, Rise of the Rune Lords.
All right, that's a good one.
We played that for 3 years, like weekly game for 3 years, and it was the most amazing game I've ever been part of. And it had nothing to do whatsoever with the campaign. It's my favorite. And it's a tabletop RPG. Like it's got everything to do with the people that you're there with and that you're experiencing with. We had a killer DM. He was awesome. But
So
yeah, that 3 year. So whatever module they wrote, because I've never actually read the Rise of the Rune Lords book, but whatever that module was written, it supported a 3 year long game.
I'm sure your DM added some stuff.
He
Takes
probably
you, I
did.
think it takes you from level 1 to 10, the actual, and it's 6 modules.
Oh yeah, we went way past that. It was beautiful.
Nice.
What are you, Bruski? Any you can think of?
Um, I mean, I think of Eye of Terror being in the sci-fi genre. That was probably my favorite, and I love the fact that it was being reported like weekly. You remember there would be like a newsletter, and you'd be able to see like the percentage of this world is this much imperial and this much chaotic, and here's where it's kind of heading, and they'd give you like a little mini blurb of story the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably my favorite for sci-fi. This was 5 or 6 years ago. I actually did the first module of the Pathfinder RPG card game,
Oh, all
which
right. I know
which
which one that is.
yeah, I think it was called Attack on Sand Point. And I was oddly enough, Jeremy, I was playing this
That's
with
the
Robin.
I believe that's Kingmaker,
Um
right? I'm pretty sure the whole thing is called Kingmaker, and then the tech and Sandpoint's the first module.
I can't remember. I thought it was just the Pathfinder TTRPG card game was literally what I thought it was called at the time, but could be. But yeah, we had the first module of Attack on Sandpoint, which was your typical, oh no, the town is under attack by goblins. Help us, you know. And oddly enough, I was playing that with Robin and a couple other friends from where I work, and I was doing like security watches, so they would come with me a couple times. I'd go over to their house a couple of times, and it was just a ball. And we just got very irreverent. There was very little. It was funny because there was very little story. We would just kind of read the story, and then we were going through the game and just being absolute smart asses. It was more fun just listening to us, come up with these weird explanations of what was occurring. Like, what happened with this bad guy? Oh, we had to glaive him a question. Did you ask him a question? No, we glaved him a question to the head.
That might be my favorite thing you've ever said, Bruski.
Oh God. It was, and they would embellish it because the weapons, what you basically get, you would have your equipment and your weapons was on a card, and it would be envenomed polearm +3. So you'd be like, no, I envenomed polearm +3 him a question, to his face, and then he answered it.
That's funny.
What about you, Jer?
So, for RPGs, my favorite campaign that I've ever been in is gonna be the old classic Keep on the Borderlands. It just is such a good starting point that a good DM can use to like run a ton of different modules through. It's very open world. It doesn't railroad you. And so when I do almost anything fantasy related, I kind of use that as my starting point. Like, how can I kind of work keeping the Borderlands into this story? I could rename it as something else, but how does this little keep become like the centerpiece of my fantasy type campaign? And not even for RPGs, for fantasy miniature gaming, skirmish, large large scale gaming, doesn't matter what it is. I always try to find some type of this one bastion of humanity is all that stands between you and decimation. Then for fantasy campaign itself, the Blood in the Badlands Warhammer Fantasy Battles campaign was beautiful. It used we already talked about the tiles. It used the Mighty Empire's rules, and it was kind of played out in this area of the Warhammer world that's kind of between the Border Kingdoms, where the vampires live, and where the Tomb Kings lived, in this area called the Badlands. And there was like a lot of orcs and stuff in there, and Oh wait, I might be mistaken because Nemesis Crown might have just not been a part of that. Well, anyways, it was definitely that campaign that I liked the most, but the Nemesis Crown kind of used the same rule set. And I was gonna say you were looking for the Nemesis Crown, but I think you were looking for something else in Blood and Violence. It's been a while since I played it, many years. I think that came out back in 2007, maybe 8.
Way back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, and then for sci-fi, sci-fi is a hard one for me because I don't know if there's been like 3 big sci-fi campaigns that I was heavily involved in. Obviously, the Eye of Terror campaign was super cool. Fortunately, at the time I was playing Tau, and they really didn't have a place in the campaign much. They didn't really have a reason to be there, so I wasn't huge into that campaign as much as I could have been. It wouldn't make sense to be there for me. But I did get heavy into their Crusade of Fire campaign that they put out.
That was a cool one.
And Crusade of Fire is a little kind of similar to the Eye of Terror campaign in that it's a 40K campaign, but it took place in like one sector of space on but not just one world. There was like, I want to say there was 5 worlds and 1 space station, and they were all made they were all worlds, but they were made of the tiles. So like the smallest worlds had at least 3 tiles, and then the largest one I think had something like 28 tiles.
Yeah,
and that is a great campaign. But as much as I had fun with both of those, I might think that our Dead Zone campaign that we did, the first campaign that Dead Zone did that was global, and I think it was called Starfall. It was the first global campaign that Mantic ran for Dead Zone, and every game you played, you'd log in just like the Eye of Terror. You'd log on to the internet. They had a web page, and you'd log your results of your games into that campaign. And unlike where GW said that all your results would matter for the story, and things ended up not. Everything that happened in our Dead Zone campaign actually became like official fluff within the Mantic universe. So now that world of Starfall is, I believe, owned and by the Plague faction. I believe Plague won that campaign, which makes me sad because I play the Rebs. And the Rebs, like, we started off strong. We were kicking teeth in and taking names, but then out of nowhere, the Plague just came at us, and we ended up getting pushed off a lot of our big objectives. And it was a map campaign as well, and each of the territories had special rules that you could play with your games. Some of the campaign rules weren't 100% used in the campaign, unfortunately, because the Dead Zone rules does have like a campaign rules when you control a territory, you roll a die and you get strategic options that you can use in your next games. But because it was online and we weren't using all those rules, or maybe we just weren't playing it correctly, and maybe other people were.
always possible.
But we ran it out at my the local shop down in El Paso, and I think we had 6 or 7 people playing in it. That's one of the reasons we got Patty into Dead Zone. So gave Patty a bunch of nameless, and I think he bought into some vermin and some of the enforcers. So he had like 3 factions pretty close to right off the bat.
Cool.
And yeah, I mean, Dead Zone is such an underappreciated game, and if you like those small scale skirmish games like Kill Team, you should definitely give Dead Zone a look, because it is so much simpler than anything GW's written for a small scale skirmish game.
I think it says a lot about the Eye of Terror that we have all 3 cited that as like, it certainly had its ups and downs, but it's been like a formative event for every gamer who was part of that, who got to experience it live. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
I'm sure the IATR is the biggest reason that like Manic does these massive online global campaigns, because uh a lot of the people that run Manic and work at Manic now used to be people that were GW back then.
Absolutely. And obviously it just proves out that that was a successful action. I mean, you know, how many other game makers and how many other manufacturers have tried to emulate that since then and really just kind of have their own thing?
Which is bonkers because that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, but you also you got to remember, a lot of gamers, you know, we're not like video gamers. Like you don't just invest for a minute and then you move on to the next thing. Like we're doing things longer term than most other hobbies, I think.
That's fair. That is very fair.
We obviously, like, we're building and buying and painting minis that are literally blood, sweat, and tears, and often quite a bit of moolah. And it's like we're not gonna just forget something like that. We have more skin in the game, is what I'm basically saying. I'm not shitting on other hobbies, but like, you know, the investment factor is real.
Nah, every time I lose a unit in game, I actually just throw it in the garbage.
Oh my God. So that's why people keep dumpster diving your place.
That's why I'm about to. Yeah, free minis.
Okay, here's a question. I'll limit it to top 3, but what movie, book, or video game have you absolutely been like, I want to rip this story for my campaign?
That's a dangerous one. Jeremy, you want to take this one first?
So, video game is quite easy. We've all talked about it already. It's the Dawn of War. Me and my buddy Kevin, we had this, we were actually scratch building this table that actually had the Gatling cannon from a Warlord Titan built into it that you had to navigate around or get blasted with if you went through it.
Remember that one, yeah.
So yeah, video game. I mean, I don't play a whole lot of video games. So that one is the video game wise. Storybook wise, for sci-fi, there's a book called Sassenach by Elizabeth Moon and Anne McCaffrey. And it's a trilogy of books. And it kind of actually is all set in Anne McCaffrey's dinosaur world universe. So there's like really like 6 or 7 books if you look at it. But the trilogy of books is called The Planet Pirates. And when I do my Starship gaming, I kind of like that idea of where like it's 1 or 2 major art, or Hunter Harrington as well by David Drake, where it's like these 1 or 2 major human powers, but there's also these, you know, raggedy space piratey people out there that you could have to fight, and they might be a little bit more powerful than you think because they have some government funding. They're more like privateers than real pirates. And then for fantasy, there's so many fantasy books out there. One of my favorite fantasy books, and it's not really fantasy, I guess it's a historical fiction book, is The 10,000, about 10,000 Greek mercenaries that got hired by a Persian army to help fight by a Persian prince to help fight his, I believe it was his older brother. So he was the younger brother and he was trying to become the king. He thought his older brother didn't want to be or shouldn't be the king. And so he takes these 10,000 Greeks into Persia and they start a war. Well, it's not just the 10,000 Greeks. He has a bigger army, but the 10,000 Greeks are like a good core of his army. And they're winning, and all of a sudden the prince does something stupid and he dies. And the Greeks then get obviously cut off from the getting back home. And the rest of the story is about them making it back through the desert to get back. And I want to say out of the 10,000, maybe like 2,500 or something make it back.
Wow.
It's a great story. And I always think that like when I want to do a campaign, I want to do it like that. Or Glenn Cook's The Black Company, where it's a company of mercenaries, and it's a very similar vein that are like traveling around, getting hired on by the next big army to fight their wars for them. And then like, oh, well, we're done fighting this war. Let's go fight. Oh, we're going to fight for the people we just were fighting against the people we just were fighting for. So those are both great influences for me for my fantasy type narrative campaigns.
That's cool, man.
How about you,
Cool.
John?
Honestly, pretty much all my top 3 are movies or TV shows because I'm a big visual guy, right?
Yeah.
That's probably evidence from the fact that I built a 5-foot siege wall for an event because I'm an idiot. But
I would say that took coconuts, man. That's dude, that was awesome.
it was fun. Actually, I'm going to give him a shout out real quick. If you guys know the channel, The Ice King, I went up there to Boca Brawl with him. They're some of my local play testers, and I gave them the wall. Yeah, the Ice King podcast, and I gave them the wall, so it's going to turn up wherever they go from now on.
I've never heard of him.
Link in description.
Link in description below. Check out the Ice King. But anyways, but a lot of those events, like kind of coming up with the sieges and all that, just comes from the big historical epics. I love historical epics. And I'll give a special shout out to Red Cliff because I don't think it gets seen enough. It's in Chinese, it's 2.5 hours, and it is John Woo telling a historical epic.
Wait, what was it called?
It's called Red Cliff.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's amazing. I'm not gonna sit here and try to explain it, but watching movies like that is what makes me write scenarios and think of cool interactions that happen on the battlefield. Like that's my number one inspiration source right there.
Solid.
Yeah. There was a Netflix show a long time ago called Marco Polo that I'll also recommend. And that's one of those that I'll watch that if I'm doing like a long running story or an RPG campaign, because it's this super intense, character driven, also kind of a historical epic show, kind of the Mongol dynasties back with Kublai Khan and all that. Yeah, I guess I'm just now finding out that I love historicals.
I've just started kind of getting into historicals myself. I'm building up a Viking army and a Teutonic Knight army.
Sick. What game?
Probably gonna be concentrating mostly on Lion Rampant for now.
Okay.
Maybe Saga down the road.
Cool. Yeah, things like that are nuts, especially the ones that are, I'm not gonna say based on historical events because everything gets a little looser in the telling, but the spectacle of seeing some of these historical events represented visually just really gets my creative juices firing for making campaigns, writing campaigns, doing crazy stuff like siege walls. What about you, Bruski?
Probably for me the biggest thing is going to be video games, and I've had a weird fascination with things that you wouldn't normally be paying attention to in video games.
Okay.
Probably the one that stands out the most for me is Halo Reach.
Classic.
2 reasons. Number one, it's hard to tell a story where the good guys win by losing. And they did that beautifully, I thought. It obviously I'm not going to split hairs on the novel versus game, et cetera, all the continuity. Like I could care less. It's you turn an absolute ass kicking on behalf of the UNSC into a way to win, which then became Halo 1, 2, 3. But the thing about it was also visually. I would literally play the game multiple times just to look at some of the different locations and some of the maps and even some of the background stuff. If you notice, I think it's the last level, Pillar of Autumn, when you're going into that real rocky canyon type area, you start out on this overlook and you can literally look and you're seeing an area that's been or is being glassed by the Covenant. And it is just the most massive storm of destruction that you can picture. And it's like, okay, good. That's like 20 miles away and there just is no horizon. There's nothing there. It's gone. It's ash. And I would look at bits and dabs like that and I would go, how would I build something like that? How would I actually represent something like that in terrain? And I'm becoming a terrainiac. It's just, it's a thing, I would not be surprised a year from now if my channel is like, hey, here's how I made this crazy piece of terrain. And that just becomes what it is.
Dude, the crystals look amazing. I'm just going to say that now.
Oh, thanks. I'm trying to finish that one up. Like I've done this experiment with these floor tiles to make a board. I finally have all the crystals poured for that. I'm getting the hills and the rocks painted up, and as soon as that's done, that'll be good to play. And I'm probably going to test out some bat reps on there. Not campaign or narrative, but just test a few things out.
That's how we start you.
That is how we get started. Yes. But yeah, Halo Reach probably is the biggest one in that. Again, it's the good guys lose. How do you tell that story and still be entertaining? You know, that's always been appealing to me. The other one probably, I don't know if you guys remember this. You remember a PS1 game called Colony Wars?
Yeah.
I do not.
It was one of the original like space fighter type games. And it was really, the missions themselves were really cut and dry, but they did a lot of FMV sequences to tell you the story. And it basically played ladder campaign. If you win this, this happens. If you lose this, this happens. And if you get too many losses, obviously, then you're out. But you know, you could still lose a sector and you could still end up winning the story. It would just be kind of rougher, or you'd have to, you know, do way better in the end missions or whatever. But it was basically that you're part of this rebellion, and it's called the Free Worlds League, and you're trying to crush the Navy, which is run by a sort of dictator / god and controls Earth and everything. And there were various endings. You know, if you did really, really well, you took back Earth and all the systems and everything was great. If you did really badly, you had to sort of close off Earth and, you know, isolate it from the rest of the galaxy and all that stuff. But it would just, even though it was simply done, it was just a really good story, I thought, and visually had a lot riding on it as well. So
It's kind of like if you took Wing Commander and threw it on a PlayStation.
yeah.
Okay, fair.
What else? I'm scrounging. Oh, dude. Sorry, I remembered. Not limited to War Machine, but use of campaigns in something like a Journeyman's League, getting people into a game.
100%. Yeah. And that goes back to what we're talking about with getting invested in characters. It's like if you can hand someone an army, especially if they're new to a game, you can hand them an army, be like, here's your leader dude, here's his entourage, his war beast, his kill team, his war cry band, whatever, and then get them to play a few games and sort of develop an attachment to that character. Then yeah, you can rope somebody in really easily. And that sounds super shady, and it is, but I love it. It's great. It's how you get new people into the game.
I always found it was harder to get people into War Machine than it was to get people into Warhammer, because you don't get to make a character that's you in War Machine.
That's a fact, yes.
When you make your leader for Warhammer or Warhammer Fantasy or Warhammer 40K, if you're not using a named character already, you're basically making yourself as that character. In War Machine, you were forced to pick one of the existing warcasters, so you had to try to find one that matched the sensibilities. Like, so if I was playing Kador, I would always pick like Karchev or the Butcher, because I kind of felt like those guys kind of matched my type of play. Miranda always would make fun of me because she's a sorcerer player and she hates the Butcher. She thinks he's the worst.
Blunt force object, yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of personalization that comes from having like, well, this is my dude, and this is my army and my chapter or whatever.
So back when I was not quite what they called a press ganger, I was basically running all the events in El Paso for War Machine. We would do something called spell draft, where you'd basically take any warcaster model, and then I would deal you a hand of spells, and then those were the spells that your caster would get. So you wouldn't get always stuck with the same caster. And that was a really, really nice way to get people in. It was something just a little fun. And we'd always do that right around Thanksgiving. And the amount of, we'd do a like a food drive. So I think we called it Food Hammer, where you would our food machine or something like that. I can't remember exactly. You donate
food machine, yeah.
You donate a can of food for a local charity, and I'd bring them all out and I'd give them to the charity. Well, actually, I think I gave them to the store owner, and the store owner was supposed to take care of that. I can't remember exactly anymore, but that was basically allowed you, however many cans you donate is how many spells you could get on top of your base, like 3.
Just psycho magic. Gotta love it.
So we always had a lot of fun. I at one point had a really good crew of War Machine players, and then Mark III dropped, and my War Machine group fell apart. And then I kind of grew it back up, and then tournament play kind of killed it because there was one kid that just was impossible to beat.
I remember having issues with the whole named character versus not early on too. Like even in 40K, I didn't really love that. I would not, unless I really liked the character, I didn't like playing them. You know, I did Dark Angels as one of my first armies, and I loved running Ezekiel, loved running Asmodai. Wasn't so much into the other guys. But after a while, it was like, yeah, I'd rather just, you know, personalize Captain Bob, you know, whatever. Getting into War Machine, it was, yeah, I was a little bit like, I got to pick, you know, I'm looking through red. I'm like, what really indicates? I was looking at Thyron. I was like, big sword, solitaire dude, Kensei kind of character. I'm in.
I think that's kind of why I like Warcaster a little bit more than War Machine right now, because there isn't really a named character unless you're playing one of the wild cards.
Or you make them. I mean, I don't see a lot of customized models. Obviously, John, you did, you know, Taria and your various guys there, but I don't see that elsewhere. I just I don't really see it as being a narrative game for a lot of guys. I just see armies and bat reps, and it's the generic model, and that's that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just there are no characters, you know?
Yeah. I've seen a few. I think it's taken a while for people to sort of not just get the emotional attachment to their army, but to the extent where they want to create something for it. Like I was writing as a hobby long before I got into gaming, so that completely tinted my experience. When I got my first 40K army, I really wanted to like write like who these guys are and what they're up to and all that. And it is kind of different. I mean, if you're getting into it later on, it's like, okay, here's a bunch of models. Now I have to get attached to them before I can figure out who they are.
True.
And that being said, there is a guy, I forget who it is, so I apologize if this guy's listening to the podcast right now, who replaced the heads of all of his AC army, which was considerable, with rat heads.
Nice.
I don't know why. I don't know if there was a story reason behind it or he just really dug Skaven, but it was impressive.
Is he on the Discord? I think I saw that.
I think he's on the Discord, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even think I'm on the Discord.
We'll fix that.
I have so many Discords that I'm like, oh my gosh. I was at the game store yesterday playing a game of Age of Sigmar, and this Path to Glory group is finally somebody showed up, but I was like, all right, I can't stay in for another game. I have to get going. He's like, are you on the Discord? And I'm like, I don't think so. And he's like, well, here, let me add you. And he goes, and he's like, oh no, you're totally on here. And I'm like, I am. I'm like, I have like 500 Discords that I'm in. I don't know which ones are which.
Yeah, I feel so bad because every few months I have to go cull the number of Discords. Just it's insane.
It's like, why can't we just go back to everything being a Facebook group like it used to be?
I know, right?
Cool, so much forums. Let's just go back to forums.
Or even forums. I was actually talking about forums in my my little building chat yesterday. Or I was talking about the Advanced Tau Tactica and how like it used to be like the go-to place to find out anything about the Tau. And like I think it still exists, but like barely anybody probably uses it because Reddit's replaced it. Me and Tommy, Miranda's husband, we had a big talk about this at Valhalla a few years ago about how there was no forums weren't really a thing anymore. He's like, yeah, they are. They're just Reddit. And I'm like, that's not a forum. That's Reddit. Reddit's not a forum. I'm not going to spend, I don't even know how to surf Reddit if I wanted to. I can't find shit on Reddit. Excuse my language, but I am oblivious of how Reddit works.
You know, I don't have a hard time using Reddit. It's just you realize that there really is no, it's kind of like forums on steroids because there's basically no moderation. Anyone will say anything and it will just, the conversation will go places you don't anticipate and cannot possibly imagine.
And some places you will definitely anticipate and dread.
Yep. Very true. But yeah, forums, I don't know. Those kind of do play a big part. And we've seen some campaigns that really forums were integral to. I remember, I think it was something in 4th or 5th ed, Bolter and Chainsword was massive. Like the Space Marine players and the Chaos players were absolutely coordinated to a person. You know, I can't remember the name of the campaign. It was not as big as Eye of Terror, but it was 4th or 5th ed, had its own little book and all kinds of stuff.
It was the Rin World campaign, right?
Um,
Or it was Crimson Fist fighting the orcs?
no, something after it involved everybody. Everybody had skin in the game. This was around 2005 or 2006. Can't remember it. It'll come to me at some point, but literally, I just remember Bolter and Chainsword. Every single faction was like, "Good, we're all the Dark Angels players. You're going here. All the Ultramarines, you're going here. All the Blood Angels, you're going here." And you'd get a straggler here or there, but otherwise, they were fully coordinated. It was like landslide wherever these guys went.
That's nuts.
But I'm with you. Forums all the freaking way.
I wish they'd make a big comeback. Forums need to make a comeback, kind of like the 80s. Almost everything 80s made a huge comeback. Let's make forums get a comeback, right?
As long as we don't have rotary phones and having your crush's mom gatekeep you for a half hour just to ask her to go to the roller rink, I'm good.
And DSL internet.
Oh, God. Downloading images one line at a time. I think you need a faster connection. God. Well, I don't know. What else you got, guys?
It's hard to say, man. I mean, my entire household is packed up in boxes right now.
I was gonna say, what can you tell us about your campaign that you've written, Budgies?
Oh, sure. So you're talking about War Machine or Warcaster or?
Well, can you tell us much about your War Machine campaign?
Not really. We can talk a little bit about what's been announced so far. So it's coming out about every month in the War Machine app. It's called Black Tide. So it's narratively following the return of the Orgoth to the shores of the Iron Kingdoms. If you're not up to speed in the Iron Kingdoms, the Orgoth were the big bads like 400 years ago. And they're back now because it's time for round 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I got invited by Privateer Press to help them write a narrative campaign with some lore, some scenarios to sort of follow and let the players play out that invasion. And we got 1 season out, so there's 9 scenarios right now in the app. And I'm in the middle of writing 9 more for the next season, which is going to pick up when some new individuals and new faces enter the conflict. And it's a little funny because I'm historically not a big War Machine player, so this is all very new to me.
Fall of Medusa 5, Bruski. Had to have been the Fall of Medusa 5. It was only Warhammer global campaign that came out after Eye of Terror.
That's the one. Yep. But yeah, I mean, so far I've liked what I've been seeing on the app, and I was really impressed. They loaded parts of the campaign and parts of the narrative onto the War Machine app, so you could actually dive into that stuff too. It wasn't just the bare bones of the lists and the rules. So far, don't knock yourself, John. I think you're doing great, man.
I appreciate that. We got some good play testers and good crews and all that, but it's an adventure. It's good. Jericho Reach is kind of refreshing in its own way because that's entirely my thing. Like, that's not affiliated with Privateer, and I can do whatever I want with that.
Yep.
So I'm sitting here in a room with a bunch of boxed up minis, and I've got a pile of notes to my left about stuff for Jericho Reach Season 3 whenever I get set up in Alaska.
Uh-huh. That's what I was going to say. So we're going to see Jericho Reach Season 3?
100%. Yeah. We are going to do the global campaign thing again, so everyone's going to be able to contribute. But we are going past just Jericho Reach. The conflict is going to spill over beyond the bounds of just the planet.
Yep.
Nice.
I remember you mentioning that. I think in the Q&A you did, you were hinting it was going to get bigger. It was going to go somewhere.
Yeah. The only things you can be sure of is Avarice is going to be creepy and Taria is going to be frustrated with him at most of the times.
I'm looking forward to that. I want to see the epic showdown. I was going to say epic ass whooping of Avarice, but I don't know. We'll see.
He's got no arms. What is he going to do?
Your arms off. What are you going to do? Bleed on me?
He's going to get robot arms.
Yeah. So It was a rejected thing, but I was originally going to have Avarice participate in one of the battles for season 2, and he had a special rule called "It's only a flesh wound."
Oh,
Because he's running around with no arms in the middle of a battlefield.
it's only a flesh wound.
It's only a flesh wound.
That would have been beautiful. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it basically meant he couldn't be killed for that match, but I decided not to do that.
That could have added some interesting wrinkles though. I mean, you slap him near an objective and be like, oh crap, we gotta like push him off now.
Slam is my favorite thing about Warcaster is how liberally you can use slam and push effects.
Yep. Someone dubbed the Dusk Wolf using 2 of the slug guns John Wick, just because it would literally just be like moving. Each shot is, if it connects, I think it's 3 inches. So they were literally just calling that the John Wick variant.
I love the Dusk Wolf.
Yeah. Well,
Wait,
when the
you gonna-
demo games ran at Adepticon, I'll remember forever because somebody had put a warjack at the very top of this radar tower that was easily like, it had to be a foot off the table, and someone hit him with a slam effect, and we explained what that meant, and there was just dead silence. It's like, yeah, so he gets yeeted for like 14 dice of damage.
Those were fun. Even on, I think you had 2 episodes where you had the train you were using for your campaigns, and there were a couple fun times where somebody got yeeted off the train.
Yeah. You're not dead, you're just 9 kilometers away.
The train episode was one of my favorite because I used to play a lot of Infinity, and there was a train mission in Infinity that I always really liked.
Cool. I need to try Infinity one of these days. I've never tried it, and everybody keeps telling me it's really scenic, very dynamic.
I would, if I was to recommend it to anybody, I'd tell them to start with Code 1, and don't find a guy that's a tryhard, because there's so many rules in that game that you could forget so many things so fast. There's more rules in that game that I don't know than there's rules that I do know, and I play a lot of different games, so it's just, that's one of the more difficult ones to remember everything with. So I tried not to play it unless it's just gonna be a friendly showdown.
Gotcha.
I am fully biting the bullet. In the next day or 2, I will be ordering Operation Blackwind. I think it's a gorgeous set, and what you're getting in it is really the terrain, the minis, everything. I think it's probably one of the friendliest all-in-one starter games. I don't know that I would get into campaigning with it because I'm probably going to take a while learning it, but I love the look. I love the minis. I'm going to give it a shot. So
When 3rd edition Infinity came out, there was a global campaign that I actually participated in. I think you could still find the stuff for it online. I played as the Shasvate, and man, I just kept getting teeth kicked in constantly.
I'm still looking forward to the Aleph. I like the hockey slam, but I'm probably gunning for the Aleph mostly.
I well, I don't think it's that big of a deal anymore. There used to be a lot of hacker killer programs, and I think all Aleph is like susceptible to them because they're more
They're more
Yeah.
technologically based.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they toned down a lot of that in the new edition, if I remember what I heard. But I might be totally off base. Like I said, I haven't even looked at N4. I've only skimmed Code 1 once. The people that I know that do play Infinity here still play 2nd edition.
Mhm.
And like not even straight 2nd edition. They play like a mix of 2nd and 1st edition. They play 2nd edition on a 1st edition size board.
Oh.
Which is back then it was a 4x6 board.
And it's what now, 4x4?
I think it's played on a 4x4 now, yeah.
Okay. Here's a weird one. What games other than chess absolutely do not lend themselves to campaigns?
For tabletop, I think there was a friend of mine challenged me a while back to do a narrative Blood Bowl campaign, and I have no idea how I would do that or how it would work, but I really want to try it.
I have a feeling if you watch the movie The Replacements, that'll give you some crazy ideas.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea right there.
Chicks take scars. Pain heals. Glory lasts forever.
Well, there's that problem solved. Thanks, guys.
Remember what I said about the red shirts at practice? Yeah. Forget it. Okay.
Yeah. Or what's the other one? Necessary Roughness. Wildcats. There you go. There's 3 movies right there. Give you all kinds of ideas for Blood Bowl.
Beautiful.
I can't think of a single miniature game that doesn't lend itself to a campaign type play. And I have well, you know what? No, I could even probably do it with that. I was thinking about some of the more obscure games that I have, but I think even those, they could be run in narrative, some type of narrative campaign. Maybe not so much map-based games. They'd be a little bit more difficult because of the way the scope and the game plays.
That's a good point.
But almost all of them can be played as some type of narrative campaign.
The only one that comes to mind for me that would be tricky, and you could do it, it obviously can be done, is Battletech. And fluff-wise, it's got enough narrative. Obviously, you could have a map campaign. The problem I think you would run into, though, is keeping players, as we mentioned, just because if you're not playing Alpha Strike, it takes so damn long.
Good point.
So they actually have rules, though, for a campaign. It's called Chaos Campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So Battletech's already set up to run campaigns with.
Yeah, I can see why that'd be tricky, though, because, again, you got to keep people coming back regularly enough.
I would say if I was to run a Battletech campaign, I would only want to do it with one other person. It would just be me and one other person telling the story.
Just like a 2-faction.
Yeah, I mean that. Unless you're playing Alpha Strike, and I've run an Alpha Strike campaign with 5 players. And that worked out pretty well. We were playing a mercenary company that was they were not directly part of Wolf Dragoons, but we worked directly for Wolf Dragoons,
mm-hmm.
And we were fighting the Jihad. And the first mission was to escape Coventry during the initial invasion and destruction of Coventry by the Word of Blake. But if I was to do a narrative campaign of basic Battletech, yeah, I'd want to just do maybe one other player besides myself, possibly 2 other players besides myself, and I would want to bump that shit up to 28mm scale. Because there is a ton of 28mm scale battle mechs out there now.
Oh yeah.
And I'm talking like maybe you just have 3 mechs each, have them it's like, I think 4 is a little bit too much, even though that's a normal lance. But I think 3, you'd have 1 light, 1 medium, and 1 heavy, or maybe 1 light, 1 heavy, 1 assault. And then it gives you a good broad idea of the different mechs you could have. They're big enough that you could film a good you'd have good film shot footage of it with enough detail of the miniatures, and I think you could do a real epic story with it. As a matter of fact, I was just thinking about that. The reason I know this is because I was just contemplating this just a few days ago. When I caught Midwinter Mins painted an Atlas battle mech at 20mm scale.
That sounds monstrous.
Yeah, it's actually shorter than a Warlord Titan, but just slightly taller than a Knight. Not a Warlord, a Warhound.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say Warlord Titans, man. That's beefy.
No,
that's
I want to say
beefy.
I want to say he puts it next to a Knight in his video, and it's maybe 3 or 4 inches taller than a Knight and like an inch shorter than a Warhound.
Okay, yeah, that's a doable weekend project.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are hating on him right now because of his comments on historical wargaming, but he still has some great content out there. And that was a really good video that where he's painting up that mech.
Cool.
Real beautiful paint job. Not the colors I would use, but
Of
I
course.
respect your choices, though I disagree with them.
I'm pretty sure he painted him up to be House David. I think he went with blue and reds. Color style. He did the normal white face. It's an Atlas, so it's a big mech, big heavy 100-tonner mech.
Some of the camo schemes in BattleTech, it's like you can't, unless you know it really well. Some of them will just blur. Like everybody has an olive green faction. It's just like, which one are you? I can't tell.
Yeah, I do like the Capellan's paint jobs. They're kind of cool. Some of the Capellan paint jobs. And then I'm a huge fan of Wolf Dragoons, so I like that black with red highlights. Part of the Black Widow company.
Nice.
A lot of, yeah, I'll say that for BattleTech. There's tons of characters. And if you get into the factions, you obviously get into a lot of grudges and rivalries and, you know, ways you could make a story out of that. I think the gameplay doesn't lend itself to the bigger problem is the gameplay.
Right.
I think your biggest problem with trying to tell a BattleTech campaign story is if you change any of the existing fluff, those hardcore BattleTech players get super upset.
Like if you literally went and like, okay, good. What if the clans won Tuckiad? Yeah.
Yeah, or like what if Word of Blake didn't attack country and the Wolf Dragoons were almost wiped out to Commander the Jihad? How would that have played out? They get so mad. They're like, no, that didn't happen. There was no battle on that planet at that year. Put that planet. I'm like, dude, it's my game. I can play. I like me and my original channel, me and my buddy, well, it's his channel, but I was filming with him. We talked about doing BattleTech stuff on it, and that's the hate we were getting on our Facebook when we were talking about it. And he was huge into BattleTech, and he'd warned me about this. And so we posted up some ideas, and people were like, "Yeah, don't do that. It's terrible. Don't even do that idea."
I'll hop onto that topic real quick because we're talking about making, running, writing campaigns and all that kind of stuff. The community really has the final say in what works and what doesn't.
That's true.
Yeah, and especially in terms of where you're putting it out there, or you're publishing it, or you're somehow making it available to people. Like if you're gaming with your buddies and they're all into it, then obviously, you know, you had a win. If you're making something that you want other people to buy and use and jump onto, that's going to matter more.
Yeah, well, I'm incredibly grateful because when I did the Jericho Reach campaign, I had no idea how it would be received by the community, and it was really well received. Like people were really positive, really encouraging about it. And if they hadn't been, I probably wouldn't have continued doing it. So props to you guys in the community. Support your local campaign. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to have campaigns.
This is very true. And you know, any creator, any content creator, anyone who's trying to, you know, publish rule sets, publish campaigns, you know, the feedback, the reception from the audience, the reception from the crowd, even if it's just the guys who are, you know, watching the games. I don't say it in a bad way, but the spectators, if you will. I mean, that's huge. And if you don't get engagement, if you don't get feedback, if you don't even get people going, hey, good job, I like it, you know, it definitely is discouraging. And a lot of people, I think, are struggling with that right now. They're trying to get something off the ground, and it's just kind of like it can be crickets out there. So if you're involved in campaigns, please do support your local campaign maker. They will thank you for it in the long run. Well, I don't know about you guys. You want to wrap up with some just current events, what we're all up to, or?
Ouch.
Sounds good. It's starting to get late over here.
Jeremy's killing himself. Yep.
Oh yeah, no, I turned my neck the wrong way.
Yeah, so Jeremy's killing himself. Yeah.
Yep. Over 30 crowd.
I currently have a pinched nerve on my neck, so my life is not the greatest.
That'll do it.
Gotcha.
Alrighty. Well, Jer, what you working on lately? What you got going for the next little bit?
So right now I'm doing my normal 3 models a night painting. I have started painting up 1 Rogue Stars robot miniature, 1 Dead Zone Maison Labs miniature, and 1 Zombicide Invader miniature. They should be done tonight. I'm super close to having them done. Just got some detail work to get on all 3 of them. But they might not. My neck's just super sore and bending down, just killing it. Should be filming the rest of my first 5 parsecs from home battle tomorrow. And as well as finishing the editing and posting up the introduction to the campaign, like the session 0.
Nice.
Looking for some sound effects to add in, and maybe like a little like jump to warp little video clip to add in as well. And trying to find free stuff when I've not done this before is a little harder for me.
Between John and I, we can probably give you a couple suggestions at least. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've found some of that stuff here and there.
Yeah.
And then other than that, I haven't been doing much. I think I'm gonna be doing a YouTube short tomorrow afternoon, possibly, of the fantasy train I need to get painted up for my next Rangers of Frostgrave game. Well, it's not painted. I'm replacing the floor. I 3D printed some buildings, but the second floors were stone. And I don't know how many people lived in the medieval ages or nowadays, but you couldn't make a stone floor on a second story above a building without an arch. It's kind of impossible.
Yep.
So whoever designed these miniatures should maybe do some history research and replace his floors with woodwork. So what I'm doing is I'm taking little wooden popsicle sticks. I'm cutting them out like as in different sizes of 2x4s, and I'm just laying them over the top of the stone instead of cutting the stone out and replacing it, which was my original plan. The stone is just twice the thickness of the popsicle sticks, and because of the way the 3D prints are, I think it would look wonky. So that's where I'm at.
You could build stuff like that pretty easily too. Berserker Works has Frostgrave Ruins, EVA foam bricks, and popsicle sticks. It's cheap, super light, super durable, super easy. I'll send you the link. It's a really good build if you want to just do that type of thing from scratch. Really easy to do. And John, how about you? What you got cooking for the next week or so?
Mostly just pack up the house. So the channel's going to get real quiet for a while. Got a few videos in the pipe to come out, but most of my creative time right now is spent either writing for the Black Tide campaign, which is in the War Machine app, or actually I'm writing most of the rules for Warcaster these days. So we're designing the 2 new armies and the League that are coming out this year.
Wait, 2 new armies?
Oh yeah,
2 new armies.
Yep. I knew about one, the robot people that used to be a part of Martial Worlds.
Lost Legion. Yep.
Lost Legion and Faction 6, which we have not revealed the name of yet.
Oh darn.
Lost Legion's looking great. I like where that's going. I like I like the fluff behind it. But B, I like the mechanics that I think it was in the last Prime cast you were going over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for that, man. Good job.
So you're not gonna tell us that the six factions Trollbloods in space?
I'll tell you, out of all the theories I've heard, I have not heard that one yet. So I'll put that one on the list.
They moved from being Scottish to being pirates, and now they're in space.
Hey, so look, Boomhauer and his company got out that gate. They're out there somewhere. He has Prodigy out there somewhere, so there has to be some Trollbloods out in space.
Pigs in space.
Oh, that's gonna be funny.
I would so much rather have Pharaoh in space than Trollbloods, but
the options are endless. But yeah, they're out there.
Yeah, so it's just gonna be a lot of that, and then hopefully towards the end of this year, I should be able to get a studio set up and start making videos again in Alaska.
Heck yeah, looking forward.
On Patty's live stream this morning with his mom, he asked her what her favorite fantasy movie was, and I was like, Patty, you asked that question wrong. You're supposed to ask it, What's your fantasy movie and why is it Conan?
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, hear the lamentations of the women.
That was disturbingly good.
I do not do it enough, but I'm ridiculously good with accents. And I try not to be that obnoxious, but yes, I can do those.
Well done.
So we're gonna see some new terrain since your board's done and your crystals are almost done, Bruski, or
Yeah, I just got to finish up the rocks, like I said, and I'm gonna pop out the crystals a little bit, and then you're gonna see the how-to video on that. This is the precursor to everything I'm gonna do later on for Warcaster. This is me just like screwing around and getting myself a playable board. But yeah, there is a how-to video in the works, so you literally see every step of how I did that this way. And I'll do the same thing. I'm probably going to use more battle mats than I use tiles. I think there's a plus and minus to it. These are pretty durable, they're pretty handy, and they're pretty easy to get a hold of. I like the fact you can texture them up really easy. I did not think of this, but the acrylic caulk paint mix with just a paint roller actually does quite a bit. So
Oh wow.
it came out better than I figured, and you guys will see that pretty shortly. So
did you catch Black Magic Crafts doing an entire table kind of like that with that roll up mat like he made his roads and rivers out of?
I didn't see a table. I saw the roads, I saw the rivers. I didn't see a table out of that.
Well, he hasn't finished yet, but that's his next project is he's making an entire mat.
I mean, that's going to be awesome to behold. I got to show you the link sometime. Narb makes. He did one for fantasy and one for sci-fi settings. The sci-fi is bonkers. It's literally got like mesh tape grating. He's got EVA foam piping and paneling. He's got acrylic caulk for cement. Like it's actually got multiple different surfaces on it and still is a roll-up battle mat. It blew my friggin' mind.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy.
So I'll send you guys a link to that. But yeah, I got my big priority is going to be getting that board done and getting some games in. And I do want to just do a Shiggles bat rep at some point. I've got a couple paint challenges I actually need to do. I need to finish Raised Dice Draw, and I'm actually doing an AC Weaver for that right now. And Nerdworks on Instagram actually sent me 6 or 7 other people are in on this, but he sent out a 3D printed Imperial Guard officer on a horse with a base. And it's just a bragging rights challenge, but I really want to jump on those and get those done.
Is Nerdworks the one that's also doing the thing, get to 1,000 subscribers, doing a giveaway? Or is that someone else?
I can't keep track of all that. I really have no idea.
Pat just mentioned it to me today or yesterday. Because that other person because he's doing art for whoever wins and a drawing for it. And I think I know it started with N. I've just recently become subscribed to about 80 different new people on Instagram the last
That's how you do. That's how you do.
Networking.
You're one of us now.
Can't find it. Oh well, I'll give up. I hate Twitter.
Famous last words. Where'd all my followers go? Yeah, you said you hate them.
I didn't say I hate the people on Twitter. I just said I hate Twitter.
I know. I'm messing around. Well, alrighty. I think that's a good part to wrap here.
Cool.
Well, as always, I really appreciate you guys coming on, Jeremy and John. It was great having you. We got to do this again. Well, I'll keep these rolling. I think the podcast, despite normal content, I think that's going to be something I just stick with. So definitely look forward to the next one with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, appreciate the chance to hang out with you guys.
Yeah, it was real nice. Hopefully we get to see each other at Valhalla again soon, John.
Yeah.
One of these days, I hope to make it up to that too. So one day. All right. So obviously there will be a few links in the description. I'll be putting John's page, John's channel, I should say, down there, and he's sent me the link for the Ice King, so you guys can check out the recipient of the Booker Brawl wall. And I think that's the big mention here. So I'll wrap it up in post, but yeah, you'll see some links in the description, people to check out. I'll probably throw the Narb Makes Battlemat in there too, just because that is so epic. But as always, we're very glad you were able to make it. I hope you enjoyed this show, and we'll see you on the next one.